Of all the fascinating historical sites that lie around the island of Guernsey, this right here has got to be one of the most spectacular.
Now we are at the German underground hospital, which dates back to the Second World War when the German forces occupied the island, and we are going to be taking you on a private tour of it.
Now before we do that, however, we're going to give you guys a quick run through over the past 1,000 years of Guernsey history, starting at Castle Cornet. Now in a previous video we talked about the Neolithic period in Guernsey, which is dating back to a couple of thousand years ago, and there's lots of historical sites around the island that give evidence to this. But going forward 1,000 years from then, we come on to one of Guernsey's oldest fortifications, and that of course is Castle Cornet.
So Castle Cornet was built in 1206 and it's guarded the port of St Peter Port ever since. It's quite incredible to see how much this has changed, as Castle Cornet used to only be accessible at low tide. Thankfully,
however, they've actually extended the pier out to it, so Castle Cornet is now accessible at any time of the day, but there was one point in time where Castle Cornet would have been as inaccessible as WWII Island on the other side of Guernsey. And the last time we were here actually was...
August?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end of last summer they had on what was called Castle Nights, and that was on every Friday, every second Friday.
Yeah.
And they used to have different things here, whether that was open outdoor cinema, music nights,
or whatever else. There was loads of entertainment. It was really good fun. So if it is on again, I would definitely recommend going and checking it out. Morning.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, excellent. No, thank you very much. It's £10.50 entry per person, so we just paid £21. If you are going to be doing more than just one site, I would recommend you get the Discovery Pass, as you actually end up saving about 20% if you're going to go to all of the different sites.
Let's get a fright of my life there. Bloody dude's chilling out as I'm vlogging away.
I thought that I came around the corner and someone was sitting there.
Is there like a little worksheet? There's one in English, French and German. I think this is really good for kids. Also, I would quite like to do it, but I don't have a pen. Just kind of got some questions on it and you answer them.
Gets them a bit more involved in the history as well. If only we had this kind of fun stuff in our history lessons at school, I might actually know more something. As you wander around the castle, the incredibly detailed models and displays around the museum help to paint a picture of what life was once like at Castle Cornet. So this castle is absolutely huge. Like, we're still in the first building. We've been wandering around for about half an hour just reading all the plaques, but I've just read here that it was in 1860 the bridge was built to join Castle Cornet and St Peter Port, which I guess would also be in line with the massive breakwater that was built over in Alderney, because a lot of work was done in the Channel Islands during the Victorian era, where they were basically trying to turn these islands into like a fortress island to protect the English Channel against any kind of invaders.
Another good part to Castle Cornet is the fact that there's actually the text is written in French as well as English, so if you speak French, which Guernsey is very close to France, so there's normally a lot of French visitors here, then you can read it in your local language.
And also in this video, guys, I'm going to try and broaden my vocabulary a little bit, because in the Alderney video we did in history, I said crazy about 25 times.
Crazy.
It's crazy big, like crazy. Quite crazy. Shall we go on further? Crazy. This is, I've never seen anything like
It's really strange to actually imagine what it would have been like to be living in the Channel Islands during this time. So apparently this is what it looked like in 1066. A remote, grassy island, not even linked to Guernsey, which just, I was about to say the word crazy. Bizarre!
Bizarre, that's a good one.
Like, what?
Oh yes, now we're talking. Time for Gemma to get into some costume. This is what we came here for. Right, what would you like to try on first, madame? Can I suggest a beautiful dress? Alright, just give us 2 seconds, guys, as we do a quick wardrobe change. Yes, this is what I'm talking about. And time for Gemma. Oh, that is looking good. We're proper fancy. Check us out, guys. If you like this fashion, make sure you hit that like button, and we'll definitely be wearing these more in Highlands to Hammocks videos. We might even try and bring out our own clothing range, to be honest. And of course, one thing you need to check out when you're here at the right time is the 12 o'clock gun, where they fire off one of the cannons bang on midday, just to signify the time of day, I guess. And so these kind of castles and fortifications can be found all across the island of Guernsey, most of which actually date forward to the Victorian times and the American Civil War, where a lot of the island was reinforced to prevent invasions against French forces, which of course allied with the Americans rather than the British. Now all of these fortifications have actually developed quite an iconic side to Guernsey, as you can see it all across the entirety of the island. That's another way to get into the bunker.
Yes, this is the personnel entrance.
Yeah, I just feel like all of these places around the island of Guernsey, because it's all like very overgrown, and we've got the birds chirping because it's spring, it just feels like I'm in the middle of like Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, or like a jungle or something.
Yeah. It's just crazy though, because these sites are so big. You just had no idea it was here until
Yeah,
today.
exactly. Like the number of other places we've been to in Guernsey as well, where there's just like you come across one of these random entrances, which I think like how much of it is actually hidden underground. So moving into a later period of Guernsey's history, we've come to a place called Mirus Battery, and it's a World War II bunker that was constructed at the beginning of 1942. Now we're being shown around by people from Tours of Guernsey and Fishtown Guernsey, very kindly agreed to take us to the battery, shows around and teaches a bit about the history. That's called Amanda and Pierre. So we're going to head inside the battery now and go and check it out, see what it looks like inside.
Fishtown Guernsey actually worked to restore these historical sites in Guernsey. This site in particular was actually completely grown over, and they've recovered it so much that now you can actually do tours inside.
And what that means is once you actually get down in and around the bunker, you can get a real feel for what it was like to, I guess, live here and work inside these bunkers like night and day, because we're told that this particular one housed, I think it was about 400 German soldiers, 500 German soldiers, between officers and actual infantry.
68 crew plus 3 officers in each of the gun emplacements. So you times up by 4, plus all the other ancillary buildings. So you'd have had 500, up to 500 crew.
And they used to live and work here basically night and day, and you can actually see it by the number of rooms that have got the bunkers and the showers and the toilets. And then the actual workstations as well, and you can get a really good feel for what it would have been like back in those days.
Now it is really, really big, but I think it would still be very cosy for 500 people. So this is a model of Battery Mirus, and we are in and around here somewhere, so you can really get a feel of how big this place is. It's very easy to get lost in here.
And a particularly fascinating part about this kind of site, you've got all the pictures of Guernsey back in the days when these kind of sites were being built. So you can actually kind of put together, if you're local to Guernsey and you're kind of familiar with the layout of the island, you can actually recognise a lot of the sites around the island were back in 1940s.
I think this is one of the most interesting rooms in the whole bunker, and that is because of the unique artwork that is in here. If you look over here, there's a piece of original German artwork which says something along the lines of "We are coming for you, England." And on the opposite wall there's a painting of an eagle which also has the Nazi swastika underneath it.
And if you look closely at each piece of artwork, you can see the Nazi swastika of the eagle is actually smaller than the original drawing was intended, because there's a part of it beside it which is stenciled out as if the eagle's wings are to be a lot bigger, and there's a larger swastika just painted beneath it. So we don't actually know why that could be. It could be because they originally planned on doing a bigger one and then kind of scaled down and did a smaller one, or maybe at a later date someone came in and actually drew the smaller one instead. But just to be in this bunker and be able to see these original pieces of German artwork is like really, really fascinating. And we were also told by our tour guides that down here is like where the electrical cabling went from all the generators that were actually in this room. And we were told that one of the people in Fishtown Guernsey actually went down there and crawled around underneath the bunker, which I think shows you how confident they are, I guess, about the German engineering, since it was about 80 years ago that this bunker was built. I don't know if I would be crawling around underneath the bunker.
We're now on our way to the underground hospital, but if you're interested in that kind of tour, which I would highly recommend that you give it a shot if you're in Guernsey, then we'll leave a link down in the description box below to Amanda's tour page, which is called Tours of Guernsey, and you can check it out for yourself.
The underground German hospital is the largest World War II structure in the Channel Islands. It sits in the centre of the island, dug deep into the side of a hill. Construction began in 1942 and wasn't completed until 1944, just before the end of the war. The sheer size of this mammoth construction is almost inconceivable to the mind, and definitely requires a visit in person to be able to understand just how big and how complex this underground facility really is.
That's cool.
The best echo of it.
I know.
So what were all of these kind of always used for then?
Well, if you look in here, you see the indications of the railway track. So, and the other thing as well, coming in from that entrance, it means that gravity is actually helping move the trolleys.
Yeah.
So when they come in here, they can push the railway trolleys in with the ammunition on top.
So it was used as ammunition storage as well as like a hospital?
All this tunnel section that we're in now, all ammunition.
Wow.
So what's that? The footprints, when are they from?
They'll be from when the floors were being laid during the occupation.
Same size of feet as you, Jim.
You do? My feet fit into it.
Wasn't quite cured enough when someone's...
It's quite creepy. You can see the green lights at the end of the tunnel. No lighting on just now.
So these information boards can actually be found on Digimap, and if you look at this one here, you'll see that you can use the slider to look and see what St Peter Port Harbour looks like now, and look and see what it looked like before. It's actually really cool to look at somewhere that you recognise and see it.
Yeah, see what it looked like about 80 years ago. And that's something that you can do online, I think. It's just called digimap.com, I'm guessing. And it's like you can do loads of interactive things. You can check out what all of Guernsey looked like back in the 1940s. So if you can't make it to here, you can actually check that out online in your own home as well. So that was the artillery storage, and now we're coming into the hospital.
Yeah, so that was,
So one of the incredible things about coming into the hospital was just how well preserved everything is. Like obviously we've got these beds in here that are replicas, but they're pretty accurate replicas of what it would have actually been like during the Second World War. So that's how many people would have actually been inside one of these wards. Pierre was saying it could be up to about 90 people per one of these tiny little tunnels getting treated in this hospital. And that just reflects across all of the hospital as well. We just took a wander through the theatre system as well, and you can actually see the original wash basins and the piping and where the original electrics would have hung from the ceiling. And everything about this underground hospital, it just is very well preserved and like gives you a really good insight into what life would have been like. It's actually so well preserved that it's quite creepy in certain parts, because you can always like hear the footsteps and that walking around from what would have been back in those days. And so that, guys, is a brief overview of the fascinating history that you can find in Guernsey. If you want to see any of these historical sites yourself, make sure you head over to our website where you can read more about the history of Guernsey, and also check out Tours of Guernsey and Feshtown Guernsey online as well, because there's loads of fascinating information over there.
And if you did enjoy this video, guys, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like the video, which will help spread the history of Guernsey across the world.
Make sure you join the Highland Hammocks gang, and we'll see you guys again in the next one.
See ya!
And apparently there used to be travel vloggers back in these days too.
It's amazing, isn't it? 1800 BC. There we go. And this is for you when you don't do your makeup. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Nip out to the shops, no need to worry about the makeup.
Don't you?
Oh, that's so, that was so loud. No. My watch is having a heart attack.
As well.
See, I love it when I've got wee models like this, because you're not allowed to actually fly drones over Castle Cornet. So I'll just pretend that this is the drone shots, and I'll just put some banging music over there.